It's William S. Brown. I was born in 1940, and I've lived in the same piece of property in Lower Pawcatuck my entire life. I joined the Navy after I graduated from high school in 1958. So I went into Great Lakes, Illinois boot camp in January of 1959, and boy, was it cold. I wasn't expecting that. But anyway, I had a good time. The boot camp was challenging because I'd never been away from home before. And you always find it different. You're 19 years old and you don't know what to expect. But I was assigned to an icebreaker out of Boston, Massachusetts. And at the time, it was the largest icebreaker in the world, the USS Glacier. And it made trips to the Antarctica to break the channel into the American base at McMurdo Sound. And I did that for 3 tours, which is it was not very ordinary that you would spend that much time at one duty station. But as a young person, you don't think too much of what the future brings, but I'm certainly happy that I have all these great memories of serving during that time.
Can you share a little bit about what drew you to going into the military?
Well, I was in the I was not on a college course in high school, but my friends all had decided to go into the Air Force. There were 3 or 4 of them, and one of them was my neighbor. So I was going to join with them, but I had flat feet. They wouldn't take me. So I didn't want to. I wanted to go in the service somewhere because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life at that point, at 19 years old. So I joined the Navy, and I have no regrets. 4 wonderful years, and at the time, as a 19-year-old kid, you don't think they're too wonderful. But now that I have all these memories to live by, I'm very thankful for that time.
What about your parents or siblings? How did they feel about you joining the service?
My father was a former Navy person, and he was excited for me because the family knew that I did not take college courses. My other 2 brothers, my brother David will be here later. He went to college. My older brother went to college, and I didn't. So I thought it was a pretty good thing to do, rather than just hanging around not knowing what I wanted to do. When all my friends got off the boat on Liberty, they'd go to the local bars, and I didn't. My dad gave me a Nikon camera, and every port we went into, I went out and I took pictures and pictures and pictures. I have thousands of them. After making 3 cruises, you go to different ports, so you end up with a lot more different pictures. But primarily, a lot of them were in New Zealand, Australia, South America, Brazil. So it was. I had a good time doing that, and I'm thankful that I did because I've got good memories where maybe some of my shipmates don't have those kind of memories. In fact, maybe they don't remember a whole lot after they've been on shore for a while.
How about any specialized training?
I was a radarman. When I first went aboard the ship, I was called what you call a deck ape. You were assigned because I had no formal education in the military at that point. So at that point, I went on as a deck ape, and the deck ape was the first division. Our job was to maintain the ship. And I can remember the first duty I had to climb over the ship with a chipper and chip the paint on the side of the ship, which was, I didn't expect that either, but that's what happens when you're a recruit.
So you shared a little bit about your off-duty time taking photographs, spending your time doing that. Is that basically what you did in your off-duty time? Did you do anything else?
No, I did a lot of tours. I had a couple of friends that we would rent a car and we'd drive around to different places. But primarily it was just what was offered, and we have to do it on our own. But it was one of the places we went to was in Brazil, the Statue of Christ, and it's up on a mountain. You can see it out at sea for hundreds of miles, and that was one of the better pictures that I had taken during my career. And I probably should note that at the end, when I was being discharged, because the ship was going to go down south for the 4th tour, but I wouldn't have come back in time, they assigned me to a fleet oiler in Newport. And I wasn't on it a week when the Cuban Missile Crisis came up. So off we went to the Cuban Missile Crisis. And that was quite an experience, watching all those Russian ships leave with all the information, all the ammunition that they had left in Cuba, the rockets and so forth. So that was quite an experience. And finally, I got out in January of 1963.
How were you received back by family and friends when you came back? And was there an adjustment to civilian life for you?
There was no adjustment at all, because when the ship was in port in Boston, I was able to come home. I would be here in the summertime, but I wouldn't be here in the wintertime, because in Antarctica, the sun is out 24 hours a day. But my friends and family, they were all supportive of me, but it's not like Vietnam where they did not get a welcoming home. And I felt badly for them and still do. But I never had that kind of an issue.
You mentioned Antarctica, and I know you brought with you the gloves that you wore when you were there. You want to share a little bit about that? That's what you wore when you were outside on the boat?
When we finally got the channel smashed into McMurdo Sound, it took about 3 weeks. And when you break the channel, the ship backs down, then goes full speed ahead. And they make 3 different cuts until eventually you get a mile and a half. This ice was 6 to 8 foot thick. And by the time you get down to the end, the reason for the channel was so the supply ships could go in and supply McMurdo Sound. I think today they use aircraft, but at that time all they were using was ships. And when the ship got on the ice, we would, we'd have beer parties. We'd go out on the ice and play football, but I'd wear these gloves. They're very well insulated. And in the summertime down there, if the wind's not blowing on a nice day, the sun's out, it could be just maybe 30 degrees, not unbearably cold like you might think. And one of the most memorable parts of that trip, one of the trips, is a place called Cape Royds, and Shackleton had a hut there. And the only way he can get there is with helicopter, because he got there from a ship, and the ship ended up breaking up. But he had set up a hut. And this is about 80 or 90 years ago from when I was there. Walked into that hut, and it was like he had just left, because there's no rust in Florida because it's so dry. All the pots and pans, beds, everything was just the way he left it. And I thought that was quite amazing. I felt honored to have been able to see it, because not many do.
How did service impact you?
Well, discipline, I guess, is the first word I would use. I was always kind of a quiet kid, but I always did what my parents told me to do. So this worked well for me when I got on the ship, because you're in close proximity to all these shipmates of all different backgrounds. And you have to learn to get along with them, but timing is also an important issue. That's why I'm always on time. No matter where I go, I'm always on time, because that was drilled into me. If you got to be here at a certain time, so I made a really strong effort to do that, and it's carried on. I still do that. The one thing that I have now that I'm thankful that I have, and never thought I'd have to use it, is the Veterans Administration. I get all my insulin through the VA, and everybody knows how expensive insulin is if you have to go to CVS. But I pay 1/8 the cost of insulin through the VA, and eyeglasses, and if you have any, every year I go for physical. It just follows up from what I do at home, because I go to both the Wesley Hospital and also my local doctors. But the VA is a good backup.
What about any other veterans organizations that you're part of?
No, but the ship that I was on, for all the years I've been away, every 2 years they have a reunion. We've had them in Boston, Norfolk, Virginia, Philadelphia, California, and San Antonio, Texas. So every 2 years was something to look forward to. But of course, as the years go by, the fewer and fewer the shipmates are, because this ship was decommissioned in 1966. when it was turned over to the Coast Guard. Prior to that, all icebreakers, or most of them, came from were the Navy icebreakers. Although the Coast Guard did have icebreakers, but at that time, all of them went over to the Coast Guard. So you lost track of. You don't have the same relationships with those that you didn't serve with. So it's kind of too bad, but it's all the people that started it. Most of them now are gone, but and I don't go to it anymore because I'm just not physically able to do it. But I think a lot of shipmates, being on a ship, if you've been on a ship for a long period of time, you get become friendly with a lot of people, even though they come and go. But I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
What are some life lessons you learned from your military service?
Oh, as I mentioned earlier, discipline and timeliness. And you have to have patience because you're waiting the food line for maybe half an hour, three-quarters of an hour to get your food. So you learn patience. You just don't jump in front of somebody, and if you do, they quickly get you out of there. So a lot of good life lessons learned in the military. It's a good basis. I remember the first night out of Boston, the ship's an icebreaker had a round bottom on the ship, and it rolled and rolled and rolled, and I got sick, and I said, "Oh my God, is this what I'm going to have for the next 4 years?" And but of course you get used to it, and it gets better.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
I don't know. They're pretty. I go to the veterans dinner at the high school that the students put on, which I always very much enjoy doing. I'm thankful for them doing it.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
That it's an honor to serve. It may not sound too good at the beginning when you first go in, but as time goes by, you'll have a great appreciation for it. And again, with the VA backing me up on my medical issues, it's something you don't even think about when you're 19 years old, but you sure think about it when you're 82.
Anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered yet?
No, I'm very thankful for the VA and the work that they do. They do an excellent job of providing for the veterans, and more than you could ever imagine. And no, I just would hope that people, if you're getting out of high school and you're a young man or a young woman, in fact, because back when I went in, there were no women on ships, but there are now. I mean, they're all integrated and good for the service to do that. But it's a worthy occupation. Some people can go on for 20 years, 30 years. I couldn't. I wanted to get out. I had a girlfriend at the time, and there was incentive enough to want to leave.